and welcome to our first off-season live show where I have the great Trident and myself, the Rooftop Sports, and Animal Sanctuary is already saying hello. And before we even get started, because we have a lot to pack in, because not so much really did happen last week. It wasn't so much so, but we just have to cover it anyway. It's not like it's anything exciting or anything, but we'll see if it is. I mean, it's not like that much happened. We just had someone that popped off to his boss, and then another guy was like, oh, 54%. And the other guy was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. But yeah, in case if you're wondering why my content hasn't been as much, especially that past weekend, it actually wasn't don't quit your hashtag don't quit your day job. This one was about family comes first. I had a cousin visit. He was actually in my live show for fantasy basketball draft, so you can check that out. Now, anyways, before we even get started, please do me a favor. I am at 804 subscribers. If you are a noob, or if you are new to this channel, including myself, Rooftop Sports, give that a subscription. Would love to get to that magic number of 1,000. So let's do it. And of course, the Trident, because he's also hosting it on his end, may draw his audience. Give him the sub. And Trident, how are you doing in this past week, as it has been so uneventful? Actually has been eventful for Mariner fans in just the most unique ways possible.
They just couldn't let the season end, could they? They just couldn't go about in the offseason. They had to have a press conference where they told us how much of a favor they've done for us, which was very kind. I cannot thank them enough for the favors they have granted me over the last 23 years.
Patience, and they said that all we need is 54%. And all these comments were so great that Kyle Seager's brother actually called us out and said, oh, yeah, I'm so glad the Rangers actually spend the money. That was definitely, and I do believe that was a shot on Mariners ownership, because
even Ryan Divish said it was. Yeah.
Yeah, because think about his brother, Kyle Seager. He probably vented to, like, hey, bro, this guy, Kevin Mather, thinks I'm overpaid, and he said he's not going to send my contract. F these guys. I'm pretty sure, I don't even know if he's even going to accept that Mariners Hall of Fame. I think he's just going to tell him to screw off, because Kyle Seager has had close to no engagement with this team. Was he even in that Felix day too?
No, I don't think so. He may, when it's all said and done for the fans, I'm sure his beef is not with people in the stands and everything. And listen, as I've gone back through, I think there were some things Jerry said in that press conference that make some sense. But man, is the wording and the tone of it.
It was just really, really bad. Like
it was condescending for a team that, and I said it in a video I did this morning. If you guys haven't checked it out, I did kind of a little season recap. You know, this team is kind of in one of those really frustrating spots, because they weren't awful enough that we can just make jokes. Like, we can't just come on here like if we were Royals fans or, you know, I don't know.
Oakland fans. Not even Oakland fans. You can't even do that. Maybe like, well, anyone, or Mets fans even.
Yeah, we can't just come on here and make fun of them, because they did win 88 games, but that wasn't good enough to be in the playoffs either. So they're in that tough spot where they're not good enough to be praised, and they're not necessarily bad. Rockies, yes, Animal, that'd be another good one, but they're not bad enough to just constantly bash. So they're in a tough spot that makes the content hard to make on this team, to be honest.
You know what? The best advice I've heard about making content, just do it. Just throw it out there, because long term, once we both get big, people are going to, someone out there, some people are going to binge watch our channels and just watch it just because our names are on it. So
true.
So just keep doing it, because you just never know. Like, I've had some videos that I posted where it got like no views, and the next thing I know, it's like, about like another 100 or 500 out of randomness. But let's get into the 2023 Mariners season. Now, before I even get into it, if you are new, because I see the 12 of you concurrents, hit that sub button for the both of us, as my goal is 1,000. Okay, let's be reasonable. 900 by the end of this month. 900 by the end of this month, based on calculation. Let's do that. Anyways, the 2023 Mariners what a very up and down season it was. They ended the season 88 and 74. They had a rocky start in April, going a little bit decent in May. June was just awful. July was when they started to pick things up, including a cooler getting kicked. August was magical, 21 wins, even though I think there was an asterisk on that. And then September was just the absolute meltdown. And boy, was it a meltdown. Now, before we get too negative, let's go over the positive of the ups. So I'll go first. So positives that I have noticed. So some of them of the positives, and I will say what it was. Matt Brash, as much as I was really just harping on that guy throughout the entire season to the point that Couch GM sent me a text to apologize to Matt Brash, which I still have not apologized, but I will at least acknowledge that he made a lot of progress. He had a rocky start, but he still kept consistent at it, and it's kind of easy when he's given a lot of opportunities to do so, but he took advantage of it, and he turned out to be our best relief pitcher of the season, in my opinion, so that's an up for him. Another one easily was J.P. Crawford, where he broke out into 18 and 19 home runs and was finally given the opportunity to be a regular leadoff hitter. He has before, and they gave it to Julio. In my opinion, they should have never gave it to Julio. Julio's like more of a guy that he's got to just drive in the runs. So J.P. Crawford's a big one on that one. Huge improvement. Hopefully he keeps that going, especially with that anti-shift rule. So maybe that will help. But really did see a lot of patience in him at the plate until very late. So I'll give that to him. Other positives I can think of, it's kind of a tough one. It gets tough. It gets all narrowed down since it was kind of a bleak of a season. At least Jared Kelnick, it's tough to say, but at least the early parts of Jared Kelnick was positive because he really did break out. It was just injuries, and I guess maybe he got too cocky, or he just got figured out, and hopefully he makes that adjustment going into the next season. And another thing I'll bring up also out of random is also our minor league prospects seem to make a lot of progress. First, we had Cole Young doing his Cole Young things, Harry Ford doing Harry Ford things. Now, they both didn't get promoted to Double-A, but I do expect them to start Double-A next season. And then we've had Tyler Locklear, although he had an injury to deal with, he still was able to do really well in Double-A. And also other things was Lazaro Montez, the Mariners version of Yordan Alvarez. He raked it in Modesto. He did very well, although when he was expected to maybe just hang around in the DSL, the ACL, the Arizona Complex League, but then he quickly developed in the single A, helping Modesto win their championship, and I do expect him to start in Everett. So those are my positive takes on the season was Matt Brash, the minor league prospects, and Jared Kelnick, April and May. Trident, what do you got? Because I don't want to monopolize everything. Oh, because I know there'd be things I'd say, but you got to say some stuff too.
I agree with every single one of those. Like you said, Kelnick's a tough one. The April was amazing. I'm still like, it was definitely a step in the right direction, so I'll throw him in there. I think Cal Raleigh having another full season of his production, what was outstanding to see. I remember last year, there was a time, in April, May, when Cal Raleigh was like, his at-bats were some of the worst to watch, and then took off last year, and I thought had another really good season this year. JP, obviously, that I think is hands down the most obvious one. I think the starting rotation, even though it didn't pitch as well in September, and it kind of, like Castillo's last two starts leave a sour taste in our mouth. I think overall, Logan, George, Castillo, you've got to feel pretty good about those three. I'm not ready to just give rotation spots to Wu and Miller, but I think they stepped up in tough spots with injuries and pitched well. I think they deserve some kudos. I agree with you 100% in the minor league system, and that was something I was a little worried about, especially after they graduated a ton of prospects and then, sent a lot off in trades like the Castillo trade. The farm system was looking kind of bleak, which was okay because the team was taking the step forward, but it really replenished itself well. And it's, to me, kind of one of the saving graces for Jerry this year, was that farm system taking a big step forward. And hopefully, now I think they're still a few years away. You don't have anybody really knocking on the door too much yet. Maybe Ryan Bliss, if you want to consider him that. But I think that was a huge one. And you hit the nail on the head with that. Trying to think of some other ones. I'm sure there's little ones like Topa and Spire. Nice job finding those guys. They did a nice job at the back end. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call them difference makers, but they helped stabilize the bullpen. Josh Rojas was a nice little addition. He was a big improvement over Colton Wong. Julio at the end of the day, Julio's season was good. It needs to be more consistent. I want to see not just one amazing month and then some okay months. I want that April through September to, you know what I mean? Kind of like you look at his WAR at the end of the year, it was really good, but I want to see it kind of stretched out a little bit over the course of the season. But yeah, exactly. I don't know if that's the right term for that, but other than that, I think you got them all, unless I'm just missing an obvious one somewhere. I think you got them all.
We didn't really say too much, but Bryce Miller and Brian Wu definitely deserve a lot of credit, because when the season started, none of us were even expecting them to be called up that early. We were like, yeah, maybe September, July, if they're just bored and they just want to experiment. But then that Robbie Ray injury and Marco Gonzalez really changed everything. So they stepped up, but as hard as they worked and some rules were kind of bent for them, I just don't think it is time for, like you said, to pencil them as starters quite yet. They should have a competition upon them, and in case they don't work out, there's always a bullpen for them. I could see them contributing to the bullpen well, since they have experience with starting. That means we can save their arms for the bullpen and maybe see if one of them can be a closer, because honestly, I don't see Andres Munoz as a closer. He's not a closer. As talented as he is, as much as he has a big, scary arm, his breaking stuff was kind of off this season. The injuries probably did not help. But I would say even on the mental aspect, I just don't see him as a closer. More of a setup guy than a closer or mid-relief. But I think there is room to improve for that closer spot. So that is all of the ups that we've got for the Mariners for the 2023 season. Leave it there in the comments to see what we missed throughout that season. So go ahead and throw it all in there as soon as you can. Now let's go to my favorite part, the downs of the season. So Trident, I'll let you go on this one so I don't look too monopolizing.
Oh man, let's see the downs. Actually, as I went through it, there was less than I thought, to be honest. I mean, the first down would just be the overall season. What was not positive. They missed the playoffs on a year that we thought they'd take a step forward. I think the biggest one is Ty France. I mean, I think that is hands down. If you had to say the most disappointing player for me in 2023 was Ty France. I think Gino's offense was a bit disappointing. His defense was still great. But I think that was a little disappointing. Colton Wong, the offseason, Colton Wong, AJ Pollock not working out. The injuries, I'll try not monopolize it either. Last thing I'll say too is the inconsistencies of this team. They were so streaky. And it makes sense. They had a lot of streaky players, so you expect streaky play from streaky players. But it was just hot or cold. There was just, like, September is a perfect example. They need to repeat August, but just play 500 balls. So I'll turn it over to you before I go on too much of a tangent.
They could have gone even less than 500 balls in appropriate ways, and they still would have easily won the division.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't go 500, if they even went 5 games, I don't think it was 5 games, maybe like a few games below, and that would have been fine. And before we get going, Reflect the Sun. Did I hear correctly that Ty France has signed up with JP to do Driveline this offseason? Heard something about that.
Yeah.
So that would be, hopefully Ty France will put in some work, but I don't think he still deserves to have his position locked down. Now, the downs for me. Who's ready for my negatives? Because you guys heard it throughout the entire season. Some of you may have unsubscribed because of it, and some of you content creators refuse to talk to me because of it. But hey, it is what it is. At least one of them said that it was only because of, I guess I pulled a Jerry DePoto kind of presentation of myself. So I guess there's that. But downs would be the bullpen saw a regression, very notable regression. As much as the numbers say, yeah, but they were like top 5, top 3, maybe the best bullpen throughout the season. Yeah, the numbers are there. It's nice. But then when it came to crunch time, they gave up those runs. And then the extra innings, they were awful. They were a well below 500 team. And as much as the offense was a heavy disappointment, sometimes you just need the bullpen to still hold it down. Like if the other team could do it, like the Dodgers or some of those other teams were able to hold it, why not the Mariners? Like that's the one thing that bothered me was they were always just throwing the offense under the bus. Yes, I agree. Offense is absolutely streaky. Too many strikeout guys, and you cannot have too many strikeout guys in clutch situations. But the bullpen still has to do their job and give up runs. We can't just excuse that. So I won't excuse that. Other downs was injuries. Injuries did not help. Robbie Ray injury did not help. Marco Gonzalez, yes, he's bad, but at least he had an above 500 record with the team. So at least he bent but didn't break. So
I think he would have been nice to have in September, to be honest.
He definitely would have. He would have been nice because that could have gave some guys some rest. And it's too bad that Chris Flexen didn't really work out either. So that was really sad. Hey, guys, no swearing, right? Yeah, we're not.
Try not to.
About? What are we going to swear? Maybe we'll get to
my kids might be watching, so.
Yeah, I've got to be good examples. Other downs I can think. Oh, Tom Murphy, him being injured really devastated the team more than what people thought. He was a big part, at least of the half of the August. And then as soon as he was even available for all of September, that definitely put a hindrance on the offense because he was actually, dare I say it, he was actually the most consistent hitter of that entire team. And that's hard to believe that Tom Murphy was, and now he's a free agent. So it remains to be seen. And this other down, I'll say it quickly because I don't want to seem like I'm just kicking him like a dead horse. Scott Service's lineup decision-making and bullpen was also, in my opinion, terrible. I know a lot of people, I know that has a very split reception, like Mariners Mojo. I know we don't agree, but I love that you guys have 8,000 plus because you guys grinded as much as I did, probably, if not more. But Scott Service is not the guy. Like, we've had him, they got them defending them, so it's very split. But then I've noticed when I look at Twitter, I see a lot more fire Scott Service tweets. Last year, we didn't even see any of that. We were like saying he should be manager of the year. Not that I agreed with it, but the perception of Service was a lot different than it was this year. Well, most of them even excused the Robbie Ray decision from last year. But anyways, so yeah, that was another down. And I will also say off-season of 2023 was also terrible. As much as we got the Moneyball kind of moves to get the Justin Topa, I think Gabe Spire was also a nice little pickup there. But they didn't really make moves to impact the offense. They got Tommy LaStella as a DH, Colton Wong, where they traded Jesse Winker and Abraham Toro. And now we looking in hindsight, maybe those two guys could have actually contributed better. As much as Jesse Winker's personality didn't really fit, he at least performed when he needed to. He got on base, made the clutch hits. Just make him a DH and we're fine. And after that, Abraham Toro could have been useful in ninth inning situations. He at least played decent with the Brewers when he was given the chance. And also the Teoscar Hernandez trade may actually hurt the team more than what people think, because not only did we gave up Eric Swanson, who was one of our best bullpen pitchers, but now Teoscar might just end up leave for nothing. And now Eric Swanson is now, well, at least was enjoying its time in Toronto with a playoff spot, but then Toronto choked, but then that was the other thing. Oh, yeah, and then losing Carlos Santana was a big loss too, but of course, I didn't expect the management to really sign him because maybe they didn't think he would repeat, but he's still competing very well. So off-season was terrible. Yes?
I think they wanted to bring, and I'm not trying to excuse them or anything, but I think they were planning on bringing back Santana. From what I remember reading, the problem was they had, and this is not to excuse them, if anything, this is more of an indictment on the front office, but you had Winker still on the roster at the time, and then the Pirates came in and signed Santana super early in free agency. And Trevor, yeah, Winker was awful this year, so I don't care about losing Winker, but where was I going with this?
Toro.
I read the comments, I lose my train of thought. Oh, the Pirates came in and signed Santana right away. So then the Mariners were kind of stuck, and that's on them. That's not trying to make an excuse on, but I think they would have brought back Santana if the Pirates didn't jump in, right away. And I think that, like I didn't mind the trades. Like I think Colton Wong should have been an upgrade over Adam Frazier. He wasn't. But the problem is, and I kind of said this in my video earlier, if you look at free agents on a tier, like you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 free agents. Colton Wong and AJ Pollock, and I know Wong wasn't a free agent, but you know what I mean. They fall in that tier 3 to 5, probably even tier 4, tier 5. Like you do all those, you run the risk of guys not performing. You need, if you want to go get, Shohei Ohtani, I'm just using a name as example, and then go get a Colton Wong, fine. I'm okay with that. But that can't be your only move that you're making, especially going into next year.
You cannot make Teoscar Hernandez your marquee move. I would say that was like, when I first saw that, I said, that's a good start, but we still got to do more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it didn't happen. And they just stopped right there. And then I remember making that video where Mariners did less than the bare minimum, and I got absolutely hammered in that. And now I kind of made a snaky comment going, I think this video is aging like fine wine. And they go, well, you posted that in like December. So how are we supposed to know? Well, I knew because I can read. I've been studying this management of the Mariners for years. I can tell how it goes, and I just happen, unfortunately. Hey, read books, man. It's the book. The book is called Shipwrecked by John Wells. You got to read it. It gives you the history of Mariners ownership and management incompetence. So
I was say I defended the offseason. Now I didn't come on your videos and tell you were wrong or anything. So that wasn't me. But I've admitted I was wrong on that. I said I thought the offseason was good. My thought process was a full year of Castillo, full year of Kirby, full year of the dumper. Julio passed the rookie season, should get an upgrade at second, should be an upgrade in right field. And I thought, and the Kelenic, Pollock platoon would be better than Winker. And I thought it was going to be enough to take a 90-win team to 94, 95. But, I admit, I've said it 20 times. I was wrong on that. It certainly wasn't. I do think they were a little unlucky with how some of that worked out. But as I said before, you go to that bottom tier of free agents, and I'm just throwing Colton Wong in there too. That's the risk you run. That's the risk you run. And they went cheap, which can work. Sometimes it pays off. Sometimes the Topas, the Spires, those worked. But then to your point, like, then there's the flip side of it though too. So you got to take the good and the bad if you're gonna be cheap.
Yeah, and before we go into the next topic, is when I was going into that off season of 2022 to 2023, it's not like I was asking for like Bogarts, Correa, and like those really big name guys. I was like, let's maybe get like Yoshida. I actually wanted Masataka Yoshida because when I looked at his strikeout to walk ratio, it was insane. And he actually did have a pretty good season. I think I would have trusted him more than Teoscar Hernandez. So that would have been a nice move. But it was really about just getting those decent mid-level players that are proven at least. And we've said it a lot. Get those guys that will contribute. You don't have to go after all the Boris clients that ask for like 10 to 15 year contracts, but just like maybe a little 3 to a more of a 3-year type. And the other thing too is there is still a lot of time with the core players that the Mariners do have. They still have Logan Gilbert on a club control, still Cal Raleigh, still all these other players out there, even George Kirby. They all have not signed big contracts yet. So there was time to at least commit to like a short-term plan and then worry about those guys later in the long run. And with how good this farm system is, which, although it's good, it's getting a little bit thinned out with the pitching, though. I mean, there's always drafts where you can always make up in case if you lose like George Kirby and Cal Raleigh. But at least in this time, with the window that the Mariners do have, and it's actually smaller than what people think, only because I just think of the Griffey years where they had a window and they completely squandered it.
Well, you always think it's bigger than it is. You always think like look at the Seahawks. I mean, and thank God they got that one.
They did.
I mean, it looked like a team, and they won that Super Bowl the next year. We thought was going to win 5-6 Super Bowls, and it's amazing how quickly a window can close. And the Mariners haven't even gotten to the pinnacle yet. They just got in the playoffs. So I mean, I'm with you 100%. Those windows are always smaller than people think.
It's small. It could drop at a drop of a dime. You could have. Next year, if they don't perform, you could have basically everyone demanding a trade. Like, man, I don't want to be here. This team sucks. Let's get me out of here. And maybe you could have Scott Service completely lose this team, because there were instances where it looked like he completely lost the team, where there were times where they just didn't listen to him anymore. And sometimes you need that kind of manager that can actually lead instead of being the guy like your best friend. And sometimes that can only go so much. But that is as far as we go for the downs. And we really tried to be positive as much as possible. But if I want to do one more positive thing, how about Mike Ford? He came out of the blue.
Yeah, good call.
When we were coming off of like Cooper Hummel and like Tommy LaStella as our DHs, at least Mike Ford makes some big hits once in a while. He wasn't like Carlos Santana, but he at least came up with some big hits when it was needed. So there's that. But we're going to move on to the next topic. And this is probably going to be the hottest topic of all of them. And I preach it to more than anyone. It's the so-called ownership. And man, did a lot happen with the name ownership in there. And it all started with Cal Raleigh right after the Mariners got eliminated. Cal Raleigh took a shot at the ownership, like, hey, we got to spend some money if we got to compete. We have a good team, but I really want to win a World Series. And he really showed his heart of how much he really cares about the team. Wasn't trying to say the team sucks or anything. He's like, no, we just need some help, some resources. Now I understand why you don't want to say that to media, as much as I loved him saying it, because some players might take that offensive. He's like, wait, you don't think I'm good enough?
Right.
But he did apologize the next day, but it was confirmed by Ryan Divish, and it's been denied several times where he was actually forced to do it. And I don't think it was even Service or Jerry DePoto that did it. I think it was actually John Stanton was like, hey, Cal Raleigh hurt my feelings. Jerry, take care of it. Scott, take care of it. And that's why when they were talking about it, they seemed like they just didn't really want to talk about it, because one, they don't want to insult their bosses, and two, what else are they going to say? Like, what else can they really say? So yeah, that whole thing started that whole thing. And we all know that John Stanton, it is evident that John Stanton really does need to open his checkbooks. Like when it all started, everyone had high hopes for John Stanton, because it was like, oh, he can't be worse than like Howard Lincoln and Chuck Armstrong. He can't go below that. But honestly, he seems to be just like them, just doesn't say, he just does a good job staying away from the cameras. Like Howard Lincoln and Chuck Armstrong, they always wanted to be on the camera, especially when you had Howard Lincoln saying, and I know it verbatim, the goal of the Mariners is to not win a World Series. It is to field a competitive team year after year to put itself in position to win a World Series, and hope that happens. And then 2 years later, you lose almost 100 games in 2004. But it's got to happen. He's got to spend the money if he wants to win. Yes, we know it's a business. We get it. Yep. You don't want to lose money and net them like the Oakland A's or anything like that. Yep. But you have the stadium. You have a constant growing market. And I know this because when my don't quit your day job, I get a lot of people from out of state actually moving here, and it's growing exponentially. The housing market's crazy. Tech companies are coming in. That means the market is there. We are not a small market anymore. We're not what we were in the 90s. We are a mid-tier market creeping to the top 10. So John Stanton really should spend that money, unless we could keep playing Moneyball. Then we could PO a lot of the other players. We might even lock them up, and then they're gone. So it could be another Griffey repeat. So that's my concerns of hopefully John Stanton listens. I don't think he will, obviously not, because all he's going to look at is 88 wins, and a lot of fans showed up, which inflated by some Blue Jay fans, by the way. But any of your thoughts on this ownership? I mean, I think we're all on the same page that this ownership's got to spend money.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, I think that's the one thing Mariner fans are pretty united on, is not being a big fan of ownership. And I think me and you, out of all the Mariner YouTubers I see, are actually probably the most reasonable on it. We've both said, I have no problem with John Stanton making money. Like, I know some people like, oh, he has a right to try and make money. He bought a team. You should try and make money. But, it very much seems like with this team that it's very much just like what you said at the end, 188 games, got fans there. They did enough. Now, I'm hoping that this season, and maybe there's a blessing in disguise with them missing the playoffs, because let's say they get in. Let's say they win 89. Maybe they beat the Rangers Saturday. They get in. and then let's say Minnesota sweeps them, or I don't know who they would have played. Minnesota sweeps them. And we're sitting there going, hey, back-to-back playoff seasons. We're back, baby. Like, talk about turning around. And then we don't get any money spent. And it's just like, oh, we made the playoffs, which would have been great. I would love to make the playoffs, but maybe there's a blessing in disguise to not missing it. It forces ownership to open up the checkbooks a little bit. And some of it's got to go on Jerry too, because I've heard conflicting reports. I'm not going to lie. I've heard that the ownership doesn't spend. I've also heard that, and I've defended Jerry. I'm fine with Jerry being back. Just I want that out there on the record. I'm okay with Jerry Dipoto coming back next year. But I've also heard that Jerry thinks he's the smartest person in the room and wants to be the money ball and kind of outsmart people. So I'm never going to come on here and defend the ownership group and John Stanton. But there's a part of me that doesn't know which one it is. It's probably a little bit of both, to be honest. Probably a little bit of both.
Well, also, you got to not only, it's not just both, but you also got to look at the fact of who hired Jerry Dipoto. But I think it was Howard Lincoln before. So, and then John Stanton. Yeah, it was Howard Lincoln because he was the CEO until 16, until the end of that ownership of Nintendo. But John Stanton had an opportunity to maybe clean house after 2018. Not saying that he should have. I mean, I do think he should have chosen new manager should have been chosen after 2018 to be part of that rebuild process. But it's up to John Stanton if he wants to have a good GM or not. Like if Jerry Dipoto doesn't work out, who is he going to hire next? He's going to hire another Stapp, or is he going to hire another Bavasi and he will magically give him the payroll? Because let's not forget, somehow Pat Gillick and Woody Woodward, they had their hands tied throughout those contending years. When they were good, they were not allowed to spend the money. But Bill Bavasi, he was allowed to have a $100+ million payroll in 2008 and lose 100 games. I see that a lot of hypocrisy there. And back then, we actually got big names. Richie Sexton, big name. Beltray, big names. We actually were nailing the big names. But that's when we sucked.
It was the opposite. They were signing the wrong. I just want to respond to the comment. Have a great day. Made a comment, said Jerry said on 710 that he's able to spend at his discretion. I will say I take everything that everybody says with a grain of salt, because Jerry's not going to go on public and be like, oh man, I can't spend anything. Stanton doesn't let me. It's his boss. So he's going to say like, yeah, we've got all the tools. And that's right. I don't know. So it may very well be on Jerry, but I tend to put it a little bit on both, and we'll see what happens. Because I think if you don't get results this offseason, they all may be out of jobs. But like Rooftop said, where do you go with that? You've got a decent core in place here. Do you hire the next Bill Bavasi or where do you go? What do you do? And if the ownership is poor, then it's not going to matter who you hire unless you just are able to get like 6 Ronald Acuñas in the lineup through development. And that just, you know what I mean? Like, and they all take off, then sure, you can win, but you got to supplement it with something else. And like you said, it's so funny that Bavasi was the one GM that we've had really, and that I remember following, that was allowed to spend, and they were like the complete opposite. They were spending on players and then not developing anybody.
Yeah, and Pat Gillick should have been like, what the heck? Why was I given that kind of, why was I allowed to do that? But yeah, and the other thing I'm really concerned about is the stuff that Cal Raleigh said, and it's really being interpreted in many different ways, especially when you got AJ Przinsky involved in all that. It makes me think, like, if this publicity keeps going out, do the Mariners just trade Cal Raleigh just because John Stanton got his feelings hurt? Because it has happened before. Lou Piniella, after the 2002 season, he called out ownership saying that we need to spend the money to get us over to the next level. And then he gets traded away for Randy Wynn to the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Oh, but to be fair, John Ellis, in the 2014 Mariners Hall of Fame induction for Lou Piniella, he did go, and that said in his Lou Piniella book, oh yeah, we should have went for it in 2002. Yeah, 12 years too late, fool. So there's that. And let's not forget 2003, Jeff Nelson, when he called out the front office for the inactivity of the 2003 season, where Oakland was somehow able to pull deals, Billy Beane. The Yankees got Aaron Boone, and there was a hope at the time that maybe Aaron Boone goes to third base for the Seattle Mariners to play with his brother Brett Boone, because Jeff Cirillo was not the guy. Oh, man. And then he gets traded away. So I'm thinking, does history repeat itself? Does Cal Raleigh get traded all over what he said? Because now they do have the excuse. They're like, oh yeah, we got Harry Ford. That's all. It's all good. And also
I think it would be a PR. Yeah. I think you can get away with it with a reliever trading him. Trading Cal, especially after that, I actually think in more cases now they can't. And I don't want them to trade Cal, but it would be such a PR nightmare. I agree. Have a great day. Brett Boone did rule. It would be such a PR night. They would get, it might, if they traded Cal because of those comments, you actually might get backlash. You may see attendance go down. I truthfully, if they did trade Cal, even if they got a good deal back, I might get, and I've been very patient. I've defended Scott. I've defended the front office more than most people. I would probably be done to the point of like, this is utter insanity if they did that. So I almost think they can't, just because I'm sure there's some people in that organization that want to after that comment, but it would be such a nightmare for them if they did that. I mean, I know winning cures all, but I can't imagine the backlash fans would give them if they did that. And it would be well-deserved.
It would be worse than the Kevin Mather situation for sure. That one easily was really bad. And just to think, now this is me going off on a tangent. I can't believe it took like the way people interpreted Kevin Mather. Now, granted, he said horrible things. Like basically, it was just the stuff he said just shouldn't have been said on camera. That's something you say in your meetings with everyone else. But the age that we're in that cancel culture. It literally took cancel culture to get Kevin Mather out. And I knew that this guy was terrible. Actually, you know what? Cancel culture in some ways did save the Mariners, but the fact that it went that far, he was allowed to have a job for that long, and Kevin Mather was already in some kind of trouble with women. Yeah. How was he allowed to keep a job like that? That's the thing. That's where I have the problems with John Stanton, where he seems like he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what's going on. He just looks at the numbers.
And it stinks because we can talk about Jerry, Justin, Scott. We can have those conversations. Nothing you can do about the ownership group. You know what I mean? Like, so it's such a tough debate because we can't, like, you don't like Jerry, fine. Jerry can get fired. You don't like Scott can get fired. You don't like Tommy LaStella, he can be DFA'd. Nothing you can do about the ownership. We just have to hope that they make some good moves in the offseason and get right and get going and can win it. You know, I mean, it stinks. Sorry, try not to, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, another thing we can do is we can always build our YouTube. How about this? We have you and me build a YouTube channel. Maybe Mojo and Couch, maybe they grow into something, and we'll all band together and buy this team because at least we agree on something. The ownership is the problem. So we'll band together, buy the team, and do it the way we want to. Now, granted, there's probably going to be some power struggles within at least a couple of us, but we have to
hire a GM.
Well, not only that, but it's about like how would we do this? How should we do this? Who are we going to choose? So, but if we had at least the two of us, if we could grow our YouTube channels to more than Mr. Beast level, which I don't see happening anytime soon, then we can maybe do something like that. But that's just wishful thinking.
Tell your friends, your brothers, your sisters, your mothers to subscribe to us. If you know 1 million people, if everybody in here tells 10 people to sub, then there we go.
Yeah, then we can save the Mariners and bring a World Series championship. And
I'm going to make a short that says save the Mariners, get me 1 million subs so I can buy the team, and then we'll go win a World Series.
We'll go win a World Series, and we'll be remembered for it, and we'll be immortalized.
I'll buy everybody for you.
Yeah. Well, that's how I wanted to close the ownership portion of it. So let's get into the Jerry Dipoto press conference disaster. And boy, was that press conference a disaster. The notable things he said, and we'll go over it one by one. Let's start with when Jerry Dipoto was like, he wasn't sure about when he was asked about the free agency, where he was like, yeah, well, whatever Cal says, like, there's not much we can do. I don't really expect to go for big names. There's other ways to do it. I mean, that one, I didn't really bag on him that hard about it because it's like, you couldn't really answer the question because it's one of those things where you don't want to pull your cards out and go, oh, yeah, we're going to get Shohei Ohtani. We're going to get Cody Bellinger. We're going to spend a lot of money. Yeah, and then you're going to that'll basically cause like a bidding war with basically everyone because for someone that works in that kind of business, you don't want to show your cards. You don't want to tell even that person how much you're offering yet. You just do it on paper. So I didn't really think much of it. Like, what did you think of it when he was like, oh, yeah, well, there's not much I could really do. It's like, it was one of those, it was a kind of an unnecessary question to answer, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But he still has to do something.
Yeah. Some of the stuff like in the press conferences gets overblown. Like you said, he's not going to go up there and be like, hey, let me tell you our offseason plan right now, and here's what we're doing. We're going to go get this guy. We're going to go get that guy. So, you've got to keep some things close. I wasn't, the only issues I had with the press conference was the tone. I didn't mind anything he said. And here's the thing, like, we want them to go in and try and get Ohtani and some other names. There is no guarantee you can get those guys. Like, you may be like, Shohei, we'll give you more money. He may sit there like, I want to stay and play for the Dodgers. Nothing you can do about it. So you can't sit there and say like, oh, we want this guy. There's no guarantees you're going to get him. And you got to keep, like Trevor says in the chat, there's like a poker thing. You got to keep it close to the vest and everything like that. So it was really just for me, the tone and then the comment about, doing the fans a favor, which he took back the next day. So the stuff he said about the team. Oh, and then the other thing that bothered me a little bit was saying like this season was a step forward. I'm not saying there were some positives in the organization. If he would have worded it and said, hey, this was not what we wanted to do, we took a step back this year, there were some organizational positives, I would have had no problem with that statement. But just to say it was a step forward, and that was like the first line of the press conference, it's like, no,
not a good way to start that, buddy. No,
it was not a step forward. Last year, playoffs. This year, no playoffs. Simple, to the point.
Yeah, and Reflect the Sun. This is just going off of the whole Shohei Ohtani. She says, I mean, who has great ROI skills and spreadsheet skills? Ohtani signing on tickets and merch sales alone would cover that signing, which is very possible. And not only that, you'll get the Japanese fan base to be traveling all the way to America just to watch Shohei Ohtani. And maybe we'll have that Shohei Ohtani meter of counting the home runs or anything like that. Just like I don't think they'll
exactly. I don't think I'm not saying they're going to get Ohtani. I don't know, but that is the one reason I could see Stanton and the ownership group being interested in Ohtani, because he's more than just a player. He's going to, like, there are very few players in this league that drive merch and ticket sales, because even the best you could sign. The Mariners could go out and get Mookie Betts and Ronald Acuna next year. If you don't win games, fans will not show up. But Ohtani is a little bit different. He is the one guy that is, regardless of winning, going to bring some butts literally into the seats. So I'm hoping, and even though that's maybe the wrong reasons for the ownership group to do it, that they see that and are willing to throw a lot of money at Ohtani.
I mean, if they're willing to do it, then so be it. And also, I am perfectly fine with him not pitching next season. It's like, he's going to go into that second half of his career. So it's like just like Babe Ruth, he gave up pitching for a point. And if it means just to get his offense as a DH, fine. Let's do it. Let's get him, hopefully, the 30-plus home runs, maybe 40 every single year, even if it means to sacrifice pitching, which theoretically he would have to give up for 2024, but I don't think any of us would mind, because we do have a good starting rotation, and you don't want to put on the wear and tear like that on Ohtani, where you make him a hitter and a pitcher. That's a lot. Like, when you're throwing like really like 90 something mile an hour fastballs and you're hitting, that's got to put wear and tear. I mean, it's one thing to be a fielder and you're throwing like Ichiro, but to do it like constantly, it's like, how does he even hit 46 home runs with a bad arm, something like that? And and now that you pretty much covered like all those things one by one, the 54%, I wasn't terribly bothered, but when you don't know your crowd, you're going to get that easily misinterpreted but I did not like where he was like, well, there's seasons where you might win 60%, or there's seasons where you might win just 50%. Yeah, well, that would just be 54%. But if it's 50%, you're 81 and not making the playoffs. So not the best use of words on that one. And you just caused someone to make merchandise off of it. Another one, we are doing the fan base a favor, asking for patience. He didn't do me a favor by missing the playoffs. And to ask for patience, yeah, let's ask.
He saved me, I guess. Saved me some stress of watching playoff games.
I guess that's a good one. So, I mean, I thought I was gonna get a heart attack after that J.P. Crawford game-winning double, and I really was feeling it. So I guess he did me a favor on that. So yes, thank you, Jerry Dipoto. Thank you for saving me stress and having a stress-free week because, and thank you for making my scheduling life a whole lot easier. You did me a favor, so I think my heart right here thanks you for that. It really does. But other than that, no, go get a winner. And plus, don't ask me to be patient because I've seen a near World Series team with this Mariners team. I was somewhat old enough to remember 95, at least enough where I saw my family, at least my father, my grandpa going nuts, and all I saw was Griffey being tackled. I was like, man, why are they tackling him? What do they do? And I was old enough for 2000 run, 2001, but because of that, the bar is still there for me. I can't just be okay with like a 2022 run. It was exciting. It was a relief, but I expect more after that. The bar goes up, and all us fans should be expecting more, not just, oh, at least we tried. Oh, yeah, we just got to believe in the team. Yeah, we were told to do that throughout Bavasi, throughout Jack Sorenzik, first half of Jerry Dipoto. No thanks. Let's get a winner in there. So did not like that. 54%, doing the fan base a favor. I think those were like the real notable ones, but we can all conclude that he pretty much, I guess he showed up like maybe he was just frustrated, so he just had to vent. He did apologize, but the only way Jerry Dipoto can really apologize is to make those big moves and help win the World Series because how about this, Jerry? You apologize, right? I'm not going to accept it. But if the Mariners win the World Series during your time, I'll accept your apology. I think that's a fair deal. Because after all, actions speak louder than words.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to end the take on the press conference. Like at the end of the day, if they win the World Series next year, nobody's going to remember this press conference or care. If they lose and they don't get in, then nobody's still going to care because they're going to want these guys gone. So once the dust settles, nothing really matters that was said. I think everything you said was spot on. I think the 54% comment, when you look at the context of what he was saying, he was talking about the 10 years. And if you do look at it, the teams that average 54% are the elite teams. He wasn't saying 54% 1 year, and that makes sense, but he had to conclude it with and to be honest, we're doing you guys a favor. And you already touched on it, but it's just like, Jerry, why even add that part? I mean, like you said, know your audience. That everything they said, if they want to say that behind closed doors, then I'm fine with it. Like they can have that mentality. But when you're going out to a fan base like the Mariners that is starving for a winner more than maybe any fan base and truthfully any sport to an extent, coming off a playoff year, it's just a bad look. And then, like you said, the bar gets raised. One thing I said in my post game after the Astros game 3 last year was 2022 was a lot of fun. And it was amazing to see them break that drought. But next year, you've got to get better. It's not about just, playoffs, yay, we got in, which I was like that. But now it's time to go win the whole thing. And they didn't.
Yeah, and what also bothered me at the start of the season, they changed up the banner, the banner in right field. So you may have remembered that. So there's the white ones, like division champions, 95, 97, 2001. We all know that. There was also the blue banner where it said American League Championship Series 95, 2000, and 2001. They then replaced it with wild card appearances 2000 and 2022. It's like, what is this? No, bring it back. The League Championship Series, because you got to set that standard. And plus, if you make the wild card every year, that's going to be one big banner that's going to go all the way down to the seats. And that's going to turn into a new hit it here banner.
Well, and it's going to become a joke too. I mean, listen, get in. I'm all for playoffs. I have no problem. I wanted them to listen. Like, I'll never not root for them to get in, even if it's winning a wild card at 80 wins. Like, I'm going to root for them to get in. But it's just they've got to take that next step. They've got to go win the AL West, and they were close. They got closer this year, but unfortunately, and while Houston maybe took a bit of a step back to the pack, Texas jumped you. And for, people can say for the reasons and whatever, but they did. So now you've got to figure it out. And the proof, like you said, proof is in the pudding. You've got to put out a winner. And if Jerry and Justin can't do that, you go get someone that hopefully can with this ownership and figure it out.
Now we're going to start speeding this up just a little bit, but I think this one we can do really fast. We can just say yes or no on this one. I just want to go through this one, but contracts that are expiring for the Mariners, notable ones: Teoscar Hernandez, Tom Murphy, Didi Gregorius, Dominic Leone, Drew Steckenrider, and Leonis
still on the team?
I guess so. And those were the notable ones. Let me go ahead and check and see on the Mariners end. Okay, Mariners. Teoscar, Dominic Leone, Tom Murphy. Those are like the notable ones they really talked about and touched. But let's go into Teoscar Hernandez. Teoscar Hernandez, do you extend him or do you ditch him?
I give him the qualifying offer, which I think they're going to do. If he accepts it, fine, comes back on a 1-year deal. If not, I am letting Teoscar walk. I'm not giving him a big deal.
Yeah, because he strikes out way too much. But as much as I would, here's my thing. Mine's a more conditional thing. If the Mariners get rid of him, they better replace him with someone better. If they get anything less than Teoscar Hernandez, we're in trouble. Unless you can rely on Dominic Canzone, Cade Marlowe to take those spots, because we do expect Jared Kelenic to have a bounce. We would think he could take that left field spot. Julio center field no matter what. But that right field is going to be left with a big hole unless Canzone, Marlowe do their thing. But they're kind of a little bit raw, in my opinion. They're talented, but they just seem raw.
To me, and I'm not saying they're going to have 6 new guys, but the only 3 guys to me that are guaranteed roster spots and for offense for the hitters next year, Cal, JP, and Julio. Other than that, I don't think anybody's job should be safe. Now, I'm not saying they're going to have 7 new starters around the diamond. Somebody's going to be back. But outside of those 3, I don't think anybody is guaranteed a roster spot. I'm kind of done. Like, it is.
France
it's time safe. To go. Yep.
Suarez is not safe.
Nope. None of them.
Rojas, he shouldn't be guaranteed a job either.
Nope. Now, if some of these guys will make it, like, I think Rojas is an okay option at second. I think Kelenic's an okay option in left. I think Canzone can do some things. So obviously, like Gino defensively and enough pop, I'm okay with him coming back. But I'm done. It is time to go get a World Series. It is time to go win this thing. And the only guys to me that I'm like, yeah, no, you're good, is Cal, JP, and Julio. Other than that, of offensive guys, not pitching.
Yeah, offense.
Included.
Yeah.
Yep. Rest of that, everybody else, nothing guaranteed.
Tom Murphy.
Yeah, I'd bring him back on a 1-year deal. Back. Absolutely. Yep, 100%.
And because of his injuries, maybe that will distract some as another free agent destination. So definitely keep Tom Murphy. Definitely keep him. I mean, okay, Didi Gregorius, Drew, Leonis, we all know that they're not going to come back, so I don't even think they're even worth the debate. So I think those are gone. Dominic Leone, get out of here. Get the hell out of here.
I mean,
if there was no nostalgia magic in you.
If they want to give him a minor league deal and he can pitch in the bullpen in spring training, whatever.
You do that, you're going to take spots away from younger people. So Leone's gone. So we agree that Tom Murphy is the only man to really keep. Teoscar is like more on a conditional basis. If you can, if he takes a qualifier, take him.
Yeah, that's fine.
If he doesn't, you better find a replacement for him and have some kind of a contingency plan on that one. So let's do that. And now let's get into the exciting part of the show. Now, before we do, let's just hurry along with the minor league prospects to look forward to. I'm going to say Ryan Bliss, Harry Ford, Cole Young, Tyler Locklear, and Emerson Hancock. Ryan Bliss, I think, could be the most MLB ready, in my opinion. He was part of that Paul Sewald trade. So maybe if the Mariners don't really, maybe they can do that platoon between Rojas and Bliss. But the thing is, Bliss is going to be raw, so we don't know for sure. So that's why Mariners should still go out and find someone. Like, you don't want to have raw steak on that one. You want to get someone that's MLB ready, that's experienced, not like Colton Wong, but someone at least more respectable, maybe even like at least Frazier level. So at least you can give time for Ryan Bliss to actually develop, not just rush him in like we rushed in Mike Zunino a long time ago. But that's like the only prospect I do expect to actually take a step forward. And don't forget, and Tyler Locklear too. If things really go to hell with like Gino Suarez and Ty France, maybe Locklear can get some kind of a playing opportunity. Any quick thoughts you have on the minor league prospects?
Nope, agree all the way around. I just want to say every time I hear Tyler Locklear, I think of Tyler Lockett. So every time I hear that name, I'm like, Seahawks? Wait, we're talking Seahawks? So, but I agree. I 100% agree with you. Hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, for sure. Now let's get into the fun part. We've got about maybe less than 5 minutes left on the show. We've got the free agents, the best part of the show. Now, for free agents, who do we go for? I mean, yeah, Shohei Ohtani. No freaking crap. We go for Shohei Ohtani, absolutely. Because big hit. Hopefully that hindrance of an arm doesn't really affect his hitting, because it actually might, more than what people think. But I think Mariners should take a chance and go get Shohei Ohtani. Put him as a DH. He'll be a huge upgrade over Mike Ford, obviously. And also, we have the upper hand. Ichiro Suzuki, longtime Mariner. At least Ohtani has big respect for him. So maybe Ichiro could be used in those contract negotiations as like a guy to draw him in. We do have that kind of advantage where we have a history of Japanese players playing for the Mariners. We had Kazuhiro Sasaki, Kenji Jojima, Ichiro Suzuki, Yusei Kikuchi, Hiwasashi Iwakuma. So Mariners should definitely go for it. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you really have much to say about Shohei Ohtani, but it's kind of obvious.
We agree. And then to me, with the free agency, looking at the tracker now, I'm not, this is just a preliminary. Looking at the names and knowing what I know about Jerry and this front office, 3 names that jump out to me. And Kayvon mentioned Jock Peterson. I think Jock Peterson and Mark Canha are interesting names. Canha's got a club option, which I'm assuming is going to get turned down by Milwaukee. That would be an interesting platoon maybe situation. A name that's jumping out to me, we talked a little bit about it before jumping on the show. Rhys Hoskins is an interesting bounce back candidate coming off an injury. Wouldn't shock me to see them give a 1-year deal to someone like that. DH, play first base if you move on from Ty France. Those are 3 names. Jorge Soler has a player option for 2024. I don't know what he's going to do there. Those are some names that, like, I know we all want Ohtani, and I hope they do, but knowing this ownership, probably not. Those are some interesting names that I could see this team going out and trying to get.
Yeah. And I was going to say Cody Bellinger, but then I looked up his agent. Would you like to guess who his agent is?
I'm going to take a shot in the dark and say it is Mr. Boris.
So yeah, we're not going to go get him. He's going to swindle some other team, make that boatload of money somehow, unless if no one gets him because they're not going to fall for that contract year he had, maybe the Mariners do sign him on that little small 1 or 2 year thing or something like that. So we'll see on that one. Now, maybe this, due to the time constraints that we do have, maybe we talk about like the free agent market towards more like the end of the season anyway. Now, let's go over this. Where is the biggest priority for the Mariners in position? And we can only name one because we could go on and on about team has this, team has this, team has this. But let's just limit to one. I will say it right here. I'll say the bullpen. Get a closer. Get an established closer or develop Bryce Miller into one or Brian Wu. But get a closer, someone established. Not comfortable with Andres Munoz and Matt Brash. Get someone that can close the game so you can at least spread out the opportunities for the other ones and not put them in such situations that they're not necessarily known for. Like the guys we have, they are great mid relievers to setups, but not someone for the 9th inning. So I will say the bullpen is a huge need.
I will say first base DH. And Mike Ford did a nice job filling in, this year and gave him some decent production. But you cannot have another year of what Ty France gave you at first base, whether that is signing somebody else or getting Ty to drive line and hoping that fixes him as well. First base DH for me. And you can't go into next season without a plan there. And listen, I'm not going to blame them for starting Ty France this last season. Came off a good year in 2022, but you've got to get an upgrade there. They need another bat in the middle of the order. They need a legitimate bat in the middle of the order and just less holes in the lineup to be more consistent.
Yeah, I agree. You cannot just go with what we've got right now. Gino Suarez is no longer a middle guy. You could not depend on Teoscar Hernandez to be that middle guy, because every one of those guys were like high strikeout guys, and we saw a lot of them where they didn't have to swing at them, but they did. Now, I think that's all we really got. I know we have to abruptly, but
sorry guys, I gotta go. So that's on me.
Yeah, that was his idea, and I tried to make it all smooth as possible. But it was still fun. We went through an hour of this. And before we go, let's go into some of the more recent comments. I'm going to go through all of them because we don't really have the time. But we've got, Ohtani. Let's open up the wallet. Jock
Thank
Peterson.
you guys for commenting.
Yeah, Jock Peterson. Yeah, totally appreciate the comments. And also hit that subscribe button. And this is my favorite one. Alex Rodriguez wants Ohtani in Seattle, which he did say.
Can A-Rod still hit?
I think he's trying to win some fans back in Seattle, which I think he does. I think the time has moved on so much where we got to forgive the guy, give him the Mariners Hall of Fame, steroid or not. I know people don't want to hear that. Now let's say other comments. At least sign Bellinger. Microsoft stocks at near time highs. Don't they have minority owners tied up? Well, maybe Ballmer should have bought the Mariners, but Steve Ballmer's a basketball guy. And I don't think there's any Microsoft guys I would trust in there anyway. But I think no other comments really stand out. Sorry, guys, but yeah, this is actually going to conclude. And we do expect to do this more consistently. Maybe we can do this once a week as long as there's a story. As long as there's a story going on, there has to be something happening for us to get us into a show. But I think that's going to do it for now. But once again, thank you very much for being on this show.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, especially on kind of a short notice, and that's during Monday Night Football, even though it's Raiders and Packers. Who cares? But thank you very much, and do me a favor, hit that subscribe button for the both of us. Hit the likes to get that algorithm going, and I think that's going to be it. And hopefully this ownership group of John Stanton really does open the wallet to get the man Shohei Ohtani. So let's make that happen. And let's hopefully have a good offseason so we could build into the 2024 season and get that World Series champion, because this core has the potential to do so. Any last words for you, Mr. Trident?
No, just thank you, everybody that joined. Appreciate you guys. Love you all. And like I said, at the end of the day, I tell you one thing we all have in common here. We all hate ownership, and we all want this team to win. So at the end of the day, everybody in here, we all have that common goal. We need this team. We want this team to win. We wish we were doing a live stream for a playoff game tonight, but it is what it is. So hopefully we'll get back next year and see what happens.
Well, that is going to do it for our show. Once again, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Trident. Thank you to myself, and everyone have a good night and go Mariners.